from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Some of you know me as Mr. Call Screener from The Mark Levin Show. Happy to be with you. I want to welcome a new station to our family, and that's WLS Chicago, the big 89, 890 AM, legendary station, celebrating 100 years this year. Big shout-out to WLS in the Windy City. Welcome. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, of course, the phone number is 833-4825, 337-8334 and at Rich Valdez on all the social media. We are live. We are national. If you're listening to us, you can give us a call. You can tag us in a social media post. Going to try and get at you during the commercial breaks. But there's plenty to talk about tonight. Right? I'm going to run a couple of headlines by you. Let me see what we got here, because I know what I want to talk about, right? I've got the Venezuelan elections, the Olympics, more on that fallout with the attack on Christianity. Over the weekend, there were thousands and thousands of Christians that gathered all over the place to push back on that. We're going to get into that. Plus, Kamala Harris, the media is now propping her up as if she is the best thing since sliced bread. But guess what? They thought she was a drag on the ticket way back when. And this is part of the problem. The common theme with all of this stuff, whether it's the new evidence, new details coming out of the shooting, the attempted assassination on President Donald Trump, or Nicolas Maduro calling for the pause of counting in the elections because his opposition was getting close to beating him, whatever the case may be. This is what authoritarians do. This is what communists do. And this behavior that we see internationally, sadly, is exactly what we're seeing displayed by the Democrat Party here in the United States. And it's sad to say, and it pains me to say, that the Democrat Party in the United States, in particular those in Washington, the radicals amongst their party, are taking this party so far to the left that they are truly inflicting damage on the country. And I'm not breaking any news, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but Democrats are damaging the fabric of our republic. And it can't continue. And it really starts with the media. I mean, the media is just so contrived in what they report lately, especially during election times. Listen, I'm an opinion commentator. This is what I do. I get it. Everybody has a bent of their own. Mine, I lean conservative. I support Donald Trump. Okay, great, get it. I'm a Christian. Okay. Guilty as charged on all three counts. But I don't make any bones about it, and I don't lie about it either. Everybody knows exactly what you get when you're tuning into me. But that's not what people get when they tune into the mainstream media. Now, most of you listening to this show, you haven't tuned into the mainstream media in a really long time. Nobody wants to hear what que mala eres, which means how bad you are. How bad she is right. Or Joe El Baboso Biden. Joe, that bumbling, stumbling shell of a man. Nobody wants to hear what they have to say anymore. But the media is propping her up as if she's the biggest thing ever. They're saying that J.D. Vance is weird. And listen, I don't care if they don't like Vance. I don't care if you don't like Vance. I think the issue here is calling the guy weird and beating him up because he said that spinsters are eventually going to run the country and the future of the Democrat Party is childless women. I don't think he's necessarily wrong. When you see that trend happening, you look at some of the youngest, most popular members of the Democrat Party, especially the left within the party, like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all out crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens. And when you look at her, she's always talking about how she's afraid to have children because of the Green New Deal, because of, not the threat of democracy coming to an end because of Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States. No, not so much. But because she's afraid to bring a child into the world because of the threat of climate change. Hey, listen, to each his own, right? But This is what they're flipping out about, right? This clip of J.D. Vance, you've probably heard. I'm going to play for you again. He was on Fox News back in July of 2021, and he says that we're effectively run by childless cat ladies. Listen to this.
Look, what I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it? I just wanted to ask that question and propose that maybe if we want a healthy ruling class in this country, we should invest more, we should vote more, we should support more people who actually have kids, because those are the people who ultimately have a more direct stake in the future of this country.
Again, that's J.D. Vance on the Fox News channel back in July of 2021. And listen, I don't have any issue with what he said. I think he's saying the right thing. Listen, people have been offended, but I've wished this upon my own children. And I've said, my prayer for my children is that they find a godly man that they can marry that's going to be a good husband to them and be with them as a good life partner. I think all people, men and women, it's not for everybody, but I hope that everybody has a chance to make that decision for themselves so that they don't end up in this perpetual bachelor life like me lately, right? I was married, but I'm divorced. And I don't want that for anybody, including my children, like I said. Spinsterhood is not the way to go. It's just not. So whether he calls them childless cat ladies or I call them spinsters, whatever the case may be, he's right. You can't allow people that don't have children, that are not part of the fabric of society. The cornerstone of our society is the family. If you're not really a part of that, how do you influence that? How do you get involved in the school system and how children are being reared and all this craziness with Title IX and how we're redefining sex to include gender? I mean, it's absolute craziness. And this is what the Democrat Party is all about. Now, listen, like I said, I'm preaching to the choir, but we are going to break this stuff down with a couple of experts that understand this stuff. So I want you to stick with me. This show is 3 hours long, and it goes fast. I'm already begging for a fourth hour. Now, if you want to join the conversation, the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That is Valdez with an S on all of the social media, at Rich Valdez. And when we come back, I want to weigh in a little bit on what happened in Venezuela, because a lot of people were excited. And I made some provocative comments online that some people were like, come on, Rich, that's not fair. But listen, I remember the Arab Spring. I remember the Maidan Square in Ukraine. I remember the toppling of the Saddam Hussein statue in Iraq. I remember all that stuff. And it's my belief, my opinion, my conjecture that most of that stuff was instigated by the CIA. Some people say it was a push for freedom, a push for liberty, a push for... No, I say it was disguised as a push for many of those things so that the United States could put a position of leadership or somebody in a position of leadership that was friendly to them, someone that they had control over, their person. This is how we interfere in foreign elections. And I say we as the CIA within the United States, the administrative state, the deep state, those the cabal of corrupt cronies that like to run world order and world affairs. Doesn't mean you, me, and the rank and file average American. But it does mean that we stick our nose in things, not necessarily with the endless wars. I actually support some of those. You might not like that, but I do. I think we need to maintain superiority when it comes to military prowess. But I also think that, you've got to have a balance here. You really do. There are some things that are smart and there's some things that are stupid. So we're going to get into what is actually going on with Venezuela with a former veteran, somebody who's now an analyst. He's in a think tank. He understands this topic like nobody else. The last time I talked to him, he was telling us all about El Tren de Aragua, this evil Venezuelan gang that ran the prison system and has been, in effect, emptied out into the streets of New York, where I broadcast from. And now they're here in the United States. Well, now he's going to give us an update on what happened in Venezuela, what's going on in Caracas as Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela, was expected to lose because of all of the popular support and all of the uprising in the streets. Yet he's claimed victory. Another stolen election, fake, phony, fraud election by those just like our Democrats. I'm going to call them communist sympathizers. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
La transmisión de los resultados.
The National Electoral Council, run by Maduro loyalists, have declared him the winner of the presidential election for his third term.
Soy Nicolás Maduro Moro, presidente reelecto de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela.
Just after midnight, election officials announced Maduro received 51% of the vote, but multiple governments are questioning the results.
We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people.
Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado was banned by the government from running for president earlier this year, and she says it was her proxy, presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez, who, according to their latest tallies, was ahead by 40 points. Venezuela's economy imploded, and though it has the world's largest oil reserves, nearly 70% of people here live in poverty. Since 2015, 7.7 million Venezuelans have left, and last year, Border Patrol apprehended more than 266,000 Venezuelan migrants at the border, a record for that nationality.
And immigration has been a key issue of this election here and abroad. The opposition was running on the promise that they would revamp the economy, that they would bring back the millions of Venezuelans who had left and reunite those families that were separated. Now, we also heard from a lot of people who said they were here to vote, and if that was the outcome, if Maduro held on to power, they would have no choice but to leave Venezuela, many of them planning to head to the United States. Lilia Luciano, CBS News, Caracas, Venezuela.
And that report again from CBS News. So Nicolás Maduro has rigged the election. It seems that way in my opinion, but I want to get the opinion of somebody who understands this stuff better than most of us do. He is the executive director for the Center for a Secure Free Society. Last time we talked to him, he was telling us about El Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang that ran the jails that's now running through New York and other states in the United States. Joseph Humire, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
You bet. So tell us, what can you tell us about this election? Various governments around the world are saying, hold on, this doesn't look right. Something smells wrong here. What say you?
So let me just unpack it a little bit. So basically what we just saw this past Sunday is probably the biggest electoral fraud in the history of Latin America, at least in modern times of the 21st century. I mean, this is bigger than any fraud they've done before, and Venezuela has done frauds before, bigger than the fraud at Bolivia in 2019, and bigger than any other fraud that we've seen. The numbers that the Maduro regime has purported through their National Electoral Council, for one, the math doesn't even add up. If you tally the votes, the percentages, it adds up to 120%. So we're sloppy on that end. And they're incredible because the real people, the serious people that have been studying the elections in Venezuela know that Maduro really doesn't have much support at all. Maria Corina Machado, who is the opposition leader, and probably the strongest opposition leader that Venezuela ever had.
I want to ask a question. Forgive my interruption, but I understand she ran against Maduro, right? And she wasn't able to get the petition signatures in time. They kind of pushed her out. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, they just blocked her. They blocked her from being the candidate. Yeah, and then she purported another candidate, and then they blocked that second candidate. And so Edmundo Gonzalez, it was actually the third person that was presented, and he is the actual candidate, and actually he's the one that actually won the election. And Maria Corina, they just put out the numbers that they have verified through the actual ballots of the voting centers, which they published, and they won 70-30. So it was not even close. They won by 40 points. It was a blowout. Landslide, exactly, yeah.
Unbelievable. Folks, we're on with Joseph Humire. who's an expert on all things Venezuela. He's executive director of the Center for a Secure, Free Society. So Maria Corina puts together this massive coalition, and she gets, she tries to put herself as the candidate. They block her. They say she can't do it. I remember reading about that. They said you have till this date, and then they gave her like 5 minutes to do it. It was just something crazy. She couldn't do it. She put up another candidate. They blocked that candidate as well. They came up with a third candidate that they thought that they could beat, and instead her popularity came right through, and this person wins. And what does Maduro do? In the middle of the night, he says, all right, just stop the counting. I've won.
Yeah, and it's almost like, you would think when you think of electoral fraud, you think of, ballot stuffing, ballot harvesting, fake signatures. You think of all the things that we've seen in other elections, even some very close to home. And you see kind of this cheating on the margins. But at the levels that we're talking about, we're not talking about a dispute of a few thousand ballots or maybe, tens of thousands or 100,000 ballots. You're talking about 3 million ballots, right? So at that point, all they do is they basically take a napkin out and write some numbers, say, what do you think we should tell the people? Which is to say we won by this much, because they have no way of proving it. It's absolutely mathematically impossible. Yeah, they control the media, and more importantly, they control the National Electoral Council. The National Electoral Council, what did Stalin say? It's not who votes, it's who counts the votes. And so in that sense, in Venezuela, the National Electoral Council counts the votes. They're the ones that tally all the voting centers. So they controlled that. They actually kicked out the opposition's observers from the National Electoral Council. They froze the transmission for about 2 hours, and they basically just made up a number. And that's how they did the fraud. But now we're at the position to what's the international community going to say. The international community can be broken up into three groups. You have those that are strongly condemning the fraud and basically saying that this is a fraud, we don't believe it, and condemning Maduro. I think you could look at Argentina under Javier Milei. He's been very strong about that, and other governments, Panama, some others. And then there's those that are basically legitimizing the steal. They're saying they're congratulating Maduro. They're saying that it was a legit election, and they're giving him the presidency for the third time. That's the dictatorships of the world. The Cubas, the Irans, the Russias. They're the ones doing that. But then there's a third category of what I would call these ambiguous third line, which are countries that are trying to say that we're going to wait for all this to be verified, that we need to look at the voting centers and the ballots, and we need to verify the actual vote. Those are countries like Brazil, like Colombia, like the Biden-Harris administration of the U.S. And I think that is a very weak position that actually is non-productive and only giving the Maduro regime by more time. Because we're not talking we're not talking about a close election here where we need to verify the ballots. We're talking about a complete fraud, like millions of votes that they just basically just said they don't exist. So you don't need to actually verify anything. You just have to call it out for what it is. Call a spade. And the countries that are taking this third line in some way are actually being more complicit to helping the Maduro regime validate the fraud.
Joseph Humire, we have seconds to go. I'm hearing that the National Guard in Venezuela are surrendering their weapons to protesters that are protesting this. Yes or no? Have you heard about that?
I have, but I also heard that there's some repression going on and there have been some Venezuelans that have been killed.
Got it. Joseph Humire, folks, I want to thank you for being here, brother. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Folks, check him out at the Center for a Secure and Free Society. I appreciate it, brother. Folks, we're coming right back. I am Rich Valdez. Don't move a muscle.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So there was some commentary all over the place coming out of Paris, coming out of different places because of the Olympics and the extremely disgusting, distasteful attack on Christianity, this mocking of the Last Supper with the space typically held by Jesus the Christ being, I guess, displaced or replaced in their image by an overweight drag queen. It was really just a mockery, and many took to the streets in protest of this over the weekend. I played a clip of audio of a commentator from Europe. Listen to this.
Anti-Christian freak show. From riding a pale horse to dancing drag queens to more drag queens, this time mocking Christianity's most sacred moment, the Last Supper Jesus Christ shared with his apostles in Jerusalem before his crucifixion. Now, if you're one of those people just brushing this all off as art, please ask yourself this. Why do they always only ever seem to mock Christianity? For example, you don't see official government-sanctioned international events mocking Islam, because let's be honest, you and I both know how that would end. So why are you okay with them targeting Christians? You shouldn't be. The time has come for all of us non-Christians or even non-believers to stand up and demand the same respect for Christianity as every single other religion.
Now, I happen to agree with what he's saying, but not in particular Islam. I think any other religion. Every religion gets a pass except for Christianity. Seems to be constantly under attack, maybe with the Jews being second place to that, at least from my opinion. Now, I want to get the take of somebody from the opposite side of the country, right? I'm on the East Coast in New York. I want to go down to East L.A., or at least that part of the world is where he hails from, the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's a broadcaster, and you've heard him. He's also a minister, and he runs the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny, or BOND, Bond. Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, welcome back, sir.
Rich, thanks for having me on. I absolutely appreciate it.
I love it. So do I. I always appreciate the conversation. So you heard the clip from one of the commentators on the other side of the world, and I'm sure by now you've seen the videos of what happened at the Olympics. What was your take?
You know, our battle is a warfare between good and evil. And evil hates good. It hates the light. And Christianity is the best religion on this side of heaven. And the primary reason is that Christianity says that we must admit that we are wrong. We must repent and be born again. And most children of the lie, they do not want to admit that they're wrong. And so rather than doing that, they attack Christianity because they cannot handle the light. They can't handle the truth. And so that's why they make a mockery of Christianity over any other religion. I know not any other religion that tell us that we must be born again. And these people hate us for that reason. Christians remind them that they are wrong. And children of the lie, of the devil, of evil, does not want to admit that they're wrong. So rather than doing that, they're trying to shut us down on every end. But we should not be personally bothered by it, because the devil loves for you to overreact. He loves to get a reaction from you. And these people are trying to get a reaction from us, because when we react to evil inside of us and outside of us, you give it a false sense of life. And these people, though their eyes are open, their souls are dead, and they need a false sense of life. And so they get a joy when they can get Christians to overreact to them. That's why God said that we should lay our weapon down and let him fight our battle for us, and he will. He will fight the battle that's going on inside of our imagination, also the battle that's going on inside of others. These people are evil, Rich, and they are of their father, the devil. They can't help it. And they get joy making Christians upset, making them respond to them. Remember, Christ told the devil to get behind me. He gave no room. He gave no attention to evil at all, because evil doesn't have any power. It's been defeated. And the devil wants us to think that it has power. It does not. We got to stand up, but we must not emotionally give in to evil, because that's what it wants from us. And that's what those people were trying to get.
So the enemy's our footstool, but yet those that are enemies of Christianity, or at least critics or adversaries of it, will say that we are homophobic, that we are bigots, that we are not allowing people to live their most authentic, best life.
And that's what evil does. Evil is the accuser. It is the lie. It is the accuser. And in evil, there is no trust. truth. And so it has to accuse us falsely. It has to say things about us that's not true so that it can get us to overreact. There is no truth in the lie. And so they're lying when they say those things about us. These people can live however they want to live, but they're really trying to impose the hell upon the children of God.
Now, Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, I agree with what you're saying. I don't disagree, but I'm honestly at odds with understanding why would the Olympics, why would they need to go woke if, I mean, they're about sports. They're about this international competition of sportsmanship. It didn't seem like they needed to attract anyone. Did they succumb to the pressure from the left within their organization, or is it a voluntary thing? I honestly can't place my finger on it.
You're 100% right. They have come to the pressure of the woke crowd. They have come to the pressure of evil. They have given in to them over and over and over again. If you look at the Olympics now, you can hardly find white men participate anymore. If they do allow white men to participate, they put them in an embarrassing position. They put them on the end. They have given it to their woke crowd, and they're using that. They care about the money and the so-called reputation more than they care about what is right. They have given it to them, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better because they have given into evil.
Wow. It sounds like there's a part 3 of that documentary you did with Larry Elder. I think that it's called The War on White Men is what you should make, right? Because it seems like it gets worse and worse. And I honestly, I get it. I get why they would want to do that. It sells and it's attractive. But ultimately, it creates a grievance that is perpetual, where people are just constantly upset and never satisfied. And I think that hurts us more than it helps us, Rev.
100%. It hurts us. It's destroying the country. It's called conquer and divide. And that's why I'm asking white men and women, but especially white men, is that they must get over the fear of name calling. They should not care about what these people call them at all. They must get over the fear of losing anything. We should all people, men and women, should love God with all their heart, soul, and might, along with nothing else or anyone else. And when we love God over losing material things, people, places, or things, then God is with us. And white people are too afraid. They're afraid to be called racist. They're afraid of losing something. And they have, over the years, that has been shown over and over again. And it has empowered the enemy of God to do what it's doing. It's destroying everything, man. Every aspect of this country. And now it's gotten into sports. Sports has nothing to do with color. Sport is just an entertainment for fun and for all of us to enjoy. But it has infiltrated sport. What is next, man? They've already gotten into the churches and things like that. Now it's destroying sport. It's destroying everything that's good because the people won't speak up and say no to it. We got to say no.
Yep. Folks, we're on with the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, and I think you're spot on with your analysis there. I want to continue to talk about some of the lies being told in the media to prop up the Vice President of the United States, somebody I call Kamala Harris, which means how bad you are, how bad she is indeed. And Kamala Harris is, of course, the Vice President running for president against President Trump, also affectionately known on this program as El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus. So we're going to continue our conversation with Jesse Lee Peterson. Straight ahead, don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our discussion, a discussion between two Americans, right? Last segment, we had two Americans. One was talking about Venezuela. The other one was talking about how bad Maduro is. And in this segment, we've got a black man on the West Coast, an American of African American descent, and an American of Puerto Rican descent, me here in New York City. And that's no DEI necessary. That happens just because, right? But I want to continue the conversation because Kamala Harris has gotten a ringing endorsement, and the media is falling in love with her as if she's the best thing since sliced bread. Now, the latest endorsement comes from the prosecutor, the Attorney General, Tish James of New York, who falsely brought this case against Trump and is, ran her whole career in politics as Attorney General on getting Trump. And today she's singing a glowing endorsement of Harris. Listen to this.
It's really critically important that individuals understand what is at stake right now, and everything is at stake. As the Attorney General of the great state of New York, I and my other colleagues, all Democratic Attorney Generals, have endorsed Kamala Harris for President of these United States. And I think an Attorney General obviously knows, is in the best position to know what a former Attorney General is capable of. And Kamala Harris clearly is capable and is the most qualified individual to run for president. In fact, more qualified than the last four presidents.
More qualified than the last four presidents. Now, of course, this is influencing certain polls. Whether the polls are accurate or not, always remains to be seen. But there are polls saying that the young people are flocking towards Kamala Harris. That all of a sudden there's this big shift in the polling. The reality is Kamala Harris is still complicit, attached at the hip, if you will, with Joe Biden's policies on energy, with his policies that have harmed our economy, inflation chief among them. Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, what do you think of all this?
I think that Letitia James is evil. She's very deceiving, and she would say and do anything to try to maintain power and control. And this thing about all of a sudden loving Kamala Harris so much, these people don't love Kamala Harris. They didn't want her in the beginning, and they don't want her now. And so all these fake tears of, oh my God, I can't hardly hold the tears back. I can hardly not cry. I'm so excited. They're lying. They are not excited about this woman. And in all honesty, I do not believe none of them believe that Kamala has a chance of beating out Donald Trump at all. When she ran against Joe Biden, she lost and she resigned. She stopped running against him because she got no votes at all. And even being in there now, she's not there because she got votes. She's there because they just handed it over to her. They don't want her. They do not want her. They just have no other choice at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if between now and September, October, they switch again. They don't want this woman. They know she doesn't have a chance to win. This woman, Kamala Harris, is a far left radical liberal. And she has not done anything to make America better at all. All of our ideas are to make us a socialist, communist controlled country. This woman didn't do anything about the borders. She didn't do anything to help the blacks, as she's pretending now. She nothing about ordering to bring the jobs back or anything. And she is for abortion, like not going north, knowing that all of America, but especially black Americans, are affected by abortion first and foremost. This woman is radical. She's evil. And they are not, even Barack Obama, it's being reported that Barack Obama, the fallen Messiah, he and Big Mama Michelle, they did not want this woman, Kamala Harris, because they do not believe, according to the report, they do not believe that Kamala Harris can beat out Joe Biden. That was not their choice. And Joe Biden, according to a report I saw tonight, Joe Biden didn't like the fact that they were trying to run him off, Barack Obama. So he support Kamala Harris just to get back at Barack Obama. And that's why that woman is there now. They don't want her there. They know she doesn't have a chance. They're just acting out. And if you notice, they don't talk about what the good things they have done for America because they've done nothing All they're
They've
doing
got no record to
is
stand on.
personal attack on Donald Trump. They're not doing anything but personal made up stuff too, because they have nothing to say. Hey, here's what we did. We're going to make it better. We helped America. We closed down the borders. We brought drilling back. We brought jobs back. The military is stronger. They have none of that to offer at all. They don't want her believing. They're lying about it. They're not excited. They're not excited about having this. It's all an act. It's just an act.
Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, excellent commentary as always. I wish we had another hour with you. Let everybody know how they can check out your show and how they could learn about the work that you're doing in Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny.
I will, and thank you. I wrote it real fast. I don't know one black that said they would vote for Kamala Harris. Not one. and a lot of my black friends are Democrats. They said, no, they're not voting for her. The people can go to rebuildingtheman.com, rebuildingtheman.com, or JesseLeePeterson.com, JesseLeePeterson.com. For 30 years, we have been rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man, bringing back God's order of God in Christ. Christ is man, man over woman, and woman over children. That's what's going to make America great again. We got to bring back the order of God and then bring back jobs and things like that. But we need the order of God back in our country right now.
Outstanding. Folks, check out the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson at JesseLeePeterson.com or his website, rebuildingtheman.com. Sir, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I always appreciate our conversations. I hope to have you back really soon.
And you are too, and I love talking to you, man. Stay doing what you're doing and keep the courage that you have.
Amen, my brother. Thank you. God bless.
All right. All right. You got it.
All right, folks, that was the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about Kamala Harris. I've been calling her that for a couple of years now, I think, and we've had a good time with it. I made my own little song, had a little background, and apparently somebody has remixed the song that I came up with, and I think they did an excellent job. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Our phone number, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to go to the phones. Let's go to, oh, by the way, did you hear that Joe Biden is yet again attacking the Supreme Court, trying to reform, quote unquote? We're going to get into that in depth in a little bit. But I want to get your opinions on what's going on. Let's go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Brody, go ahead.
Gentlemen and scholars, sir, I just want to sum it up here. There was another attack on the Jewish people in Pittsburgh, in Squirrel Hill. A synagogue was desecrated, and the Jewish Federation over in Oakland area, near where all the campuses are, they spray painted funds genocide. Jewish Federation funds genocide, love Jews, hate something. I don't know what they said there. And then on the Chabad in Squirrel Hill, Jews for Palestine, they woke up with that. It's a hate crime. Everybody's going to be taking their gloves off now. We're not tolerating this anymore against anybody. I wouldn't desecrate any worship.
Nobody should. Nobody should be doing any of that. This is the result that we have when the left within the media attacks Israel, attacks Netanyahu, and just makes it seem as if this is the way we ought to be. It's not. We shouldn't attack the Supreme Court. We shouldn't attack the Jews. We shouldn't attack democracy or the Republic. Brody, thanks for the call. I'm Rich Valdez, coming right back.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Some of you know me as Mr. Call Screener from The Mark Levin Show. I want to welcome a brand new radio station to our family of radio stations, and that's WLS Chicago 890, the Big 89. Welcome to America at Night with me, Rich Valdez. It's my pleasure to have you guys. Thanks for having me on your station. Of course, anybody wants to call in, we're live, we're national, and you're welcome to call, especially in the next hour, right? This is hour number 2 on a Monday night. But we're going to have open phones across America, a tradition started by Larry King and then continued by Jim Bohannon and now continued by us. The phone number for that, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And Joe Biden is weakening the presidency. He is trying to change the Constitution to weaken the Supreme Court, and he's doing it all in the name of extremism. I'm going to get to that in a second. You've got Democrats that are worrying behind the scenes about Kamala Harris. That's right, Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States. Will she be able to mitigate the losses that they knew they would get with Biden? They're hoping that she can mitigate these losses. Will she do it? Yes, no, maybe so. We're going to talk about that as well. And new failures have been revealed in the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump, who I like to call El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. We're going to get into all of that as well, plus some of the stuff happening internationally. The United States is now ordering the evacuation of all citizens in Lebanon. That comes on the heels of the attack on Israel that happened just like 3 days ago. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And, of course, Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro has claimed victory in a obviously rigged election. We talked a little bit about that at the top of hour number 1. We'll revisit that maybe a little bit later, maybe at the top of hour number 3. But right now, I want you to hear Joe El Baboso Biden, right? President Biden was speaking at the Lyndon B. Johnson Library in Austin, Texas today. He says extremism has become a problem in America, and he's now calling to revamp the court system, to revamp immunity that presidents have, the fact that a president can have an advisor that has a presidential privilege. It's just crazy to me. And the reason they're doing this is because Trump won in court on that. And the court said, yeah, you have to do that. Not because of Trump, because to protect the presidency. But that's not good enough for Joe Biden or the left within the media or the left within the Democrat Party. So I want you to hear Biden calling for a no one is above the law, quote unquote, amendment to the Constitution.
I'm calling for a constitutional amendment called No One is Above the Law Amendment. It holds, and I mean this sincerely, it holds that there's no immunity for crimes former president committed while in office. I share our founders' belief that the president must answer to the law. The president is accountable in the exercise of the great power of the presidency. We're a nation of laws, not kings and dictators.
Now, you know, the problem that we have here with Joe Biden, we're not dictators, we're not whatever, we've got to... Listen, the problem here is that he's weakening the presidency, right? This is, in effect, an actual attack on the republic, on the fabric of our republic. The fact that the president won't have the ability to have these advisors and serve at the capacity that he could. And that's clear as day. And the court has upheld this. But Biden wants to change the rules of the game, right? And that's okay. Look, I support anybody trying to change the rules of the game. I really do, because that's what the small d democratic process within our republic is. Our constitutional republic allows for a representative democracy within the republic, right? That's why we have a House of Representatives that we elect to vote on legislation on our behalf. They go and make laws on our behalf, and we vote for them. That's clear. So if he wants to lobby for this, let him do it. People are lobbying for new laws all the time. And I'm going to lobby the American people that are tuned in to hundreds of radio stations all the way from New York City all the way to Alaska. I'm going to lobby each and every one of you to uphold the Constitution, to make sure that we hold on to American traditions and American values, because the people that wrote the Constitution and were informed by many of the thinkers of the Enlightenment, John Locke and others, they knew what they were doing. And it's important, in my opinion, that we not lose sight of that. And we not lose sight of the fact that these people experienced the tyranny from King George. They lived that, and they were making sure that this didn't happen again. These fail-safes that they put in place, they did this to ensure an independent judiciary that would be free from politics, knowing that once they're in, even if the guy that appointed them needed a favor, he can't take them out. So when they say things on both sides, if they say an Obama-appointed judge, and many articles say that, so if you hear me saying it, I'm usually reading it from an article, but a judge, an Obama judge or a Trump judge or a Bush judge, this in effect means nothing because they're protected. They can turn on any one of these people. And as you've seen, right, Amy Coney Barrett has disagreed with President Trump on a number of issues. And she's shown that independence by knowing that she can't be taken out by anybody, not by Joe El Baboso Biden, not by El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, and not by Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democrat nominee and current vice president. She does what she does, right? Now, her motivation is a secondary question, and that's a whole different conversation. But my point is that independence is there to protect the high court, right? To protect the judiciary, to ensure its independence. And Joe Biden wants to take away that independence. He wants to put his thumb on the scale. He wants to ensure that he has influence over the court. That's not cool. That's not how it's supposed to work. And he's also called for a lot more. He's called for a term limit on Supreme Court justices. Now, this speech, we're going to analyze this speech with a White House speechwriter. But I want you to hear one more clip before we do, because I think it's important. Listen to this.
The second thing I'm asking for, we've had term limits for presidents of the United States for nearly 75 years after the Truman administration. And I believe we should have term limits for Supreme Court justices in the United States as well. In fact, the United States is the only major constitutional democracy that gives lifetime seats in their high court. Term limits would help ensure that the court membership changes with some regularity. That would make timing for the court's nomination more predictable and less arbitrary. Reduce the chance that any single presidency imposes undue influence in generations to come.
So that, again, is President Biden today in his speech at the LBJ Library in Austin, Texas. Now, you've heard my comments on that. I want to bring in an expert, somebody who was a chief speechwriter to Ronald Reagan. He served in Richard Nixon's White House and assisted with Nixon's memoirs. Now, he himself has written a book. He's the author of a book called Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon. Ken Khachigian, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Rich. Good to be on your show.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Now, you being the pro at presidential speech writing, what do you make of Joe Biden's speech today at the LBJ Library?
It sounds like he wants to be relevant, Rich. I mean, he's making things up.
Yeah, seems that way.
Well, how about term limits for U.S. senators? This was a fellow that has been in government his whole life since he was 29 years old. So he doesn't, he should start talking about term limits for people in office. This is silly. He has basically now he's going to leave office, so he has nothing to do. So he's coming up with silly things. If you have term limits for Supreme Court justices, you know what? That makes it more political. It means that it's more in control of the political process. And when Supreme Court justices know that they have life terms, it means they're more immune from the political process, so that they're less controlled by the political whims of presidents that come and go. So that's the whole point of life tenure on the Supreme Court. Joe Biden was on the Judiciary Committee, and he should know much better. See, he needs something to do. So he's sitting around, doodling around in the Lincoln sitting room in the residence, and he said, what can I come up with in a speech? Oh, maybe term limits for the Supreme Court. That sounds good, and I'll put that in a speech. So he's just messing with things. So it's really stupid, Rich.
Yeah. Now, Ken Khachigian, chief speechwriter to Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, he's mentioned in the past changing the filibuster rule so that they don't need a 2/3 majority to make these changes and make big votes, but to 50% plus one vote type of thing, in effect, to try and bring about more changes like this. To me, it seems like those are way out of line, and I don't think they're going to happen. But what's your sense of something like that happening?
Well, they changed it. Harry Reid changed it for the vote on the Supreme Court, and it rebounded negatively for the Democrats, and they ended up with a good conservative Supreme Court justice, as you know. So that redounded against them. But the filibuster, the filibuster rule is I think makes sense sometimes. You need to have good, solid debate in the Senate, but I'm not an expert in that. I think what I do know is that presidential speeches need to be sensible. They need to have some quality of thoughtfulness behind them. And in this case, I think this is just something he just pulled out of his back pocket. And I think he's lost a real sense of history here. And this is nothing that, I served with President Reagan and President Nixon. These were the two giants of the last quarter of the 20th century. These are the men who ended the Cold War, and I can't even imagine them coming up with some cockamamie thing like this. Maybe he discussed this with George Clooney,
one of his closet advisors.
One of his advisors, or Steven Spielberg, another one of his advisors. So maybe that's who came up with something like this. But other than that, I don't know of anybody who would come up with something. You don't just come up with constitutional amendments out of the air.
Right, I agree with that, folks. We're on with Ken Khachigian, former speechwriter to Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, and he is the author of an amazing book that he's going to tell us all about when we come back. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our discussion with Ken Khachigian, chief speechwriter to Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, and the author, of a book, an amazing book that I want him to tell us all about. It's called Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon. Ken Khachigian, what stood out for you most in those years with these two great presidents?
Well, one was the amazing time when I came back with President Nixon after he resigned. It was just a very emotional time. The first chapter in the book is about it's very melodramatic. It's about the last week before he resigned. It's sort of, I don't want to call it in the bunker, but I guess that's one way to describe it. I have a TikTok of the last hours, almost day by day, hour by hour, of what it was like. I worked with Al Haig and Ron Ziegler and Fred Vazart, his lawyer, and Diane Sawyer was one of the folks that we were working with at that time. A young lady, she was on our staff at the time, and we're trying to fight the anti-impeachment forces. And it was turned out to be futile, but we ended up with the president doing the dignified thing and resigning because he had lost his political support. And when he returned to California, I came back with him after a couple of weeks after he resigned, and he was really after losing the most important thing in his whole life, the presidency. They were still hounding him, Rich. They were after him on back taxes. He had no job. He had no income. They were still sending subpoenas after him. The press was hounding him. But, he took me aside in his office and he said, Ken, don't get down. We have to look forward. It was just an amazing insight for me about my life. I was only 29 years old at the time. It was just incredible how the resilience of this man, just an insight to him. That was one of the lessons I learned in my life in terms of just as a very young man 50 years ago. And then he introduced me to Ronald Reagan through his campaign manager. They had a good relationship. Nixon said when we were working on his memoirs, said, we're going to be good to Reagan because Reagan was loyal to him during his presidency because he stuck by Nixon during Watergate and Vietnam. Vietnam was a real burden that Nixon had to carry because they called it Nixon's war, but it wasn't his war. It was left to him by Jack Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. He inherited 540,000 troops from the Eastern elite establishment.
And this was a difficult time for the country. I mean, clearly every speech had to have a lot more reach and gravitas. I think people are going to be thrilled to buy a copy of your book, maybe even 2 copies if they're so inclined. Ken Khachigian, let everybody know where they can get a copy of your book, Behind Closed Doors, In the Room with Reagan and Nixon.
They can get it on Amazon or they can go to my website, www.reaganandnixon.com, www.reaganandnixon.com. And there's a lot of intriguing stories. And one of them is going to be about this interviews with David Frost. There's a whole chapter on the Frost-Nixon interviews, which never have been revealed before.
Outstanding. Folks, make sure you check out the website, reaganandnixon.com. Ken Khachigian, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I want to thank you for staying up late with us tonight. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And folks, we continue our conversation straight ahead. We're going to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu's speech, the attack on Israel, and more. Plus, your calls are coming up at the top of the next hour. Don't go anywhere. Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, was doing a rally, doing what he does best on Saturday. He was in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and before he got going with his rally and his main agenda, he took a moment to address the evil attack that occurred in Israel 3 days ago. Listen to this.
Before we begin, I want to condemn the evil attack on Israel that took place earlier today. A missile launched by Hezbollah killed at least a dozen children, young children. And they were playing, as you heard, on a soccer field in Israeli territory on the Golan Heights, a place that I recognized during my administration as under Israel's sovereignty. It was a big thing. I've been trying to get it done for 72 years. I got it done in about 1 hour. The savage Hezbollah terrorists struck these children with an Iranian precision missile. Dozens more were wounded in the attack, and sadly, the death toll is probably going to go very substantially higher. Our hearts go out to the families of these innocent children. No parent should have to suffer the terrible loss of a child at the hands of terrorists or anybody else.
So now you've got the French president calling on Iran to avoid regional military escalation after this attack on the Golan Heights. That's Emmanuel Macron. And you've got Hezbollah's involvement. You've got the U.S. pulling people out of Lebanon. There's a lot going on. This is all happening during the Biden-Harris or Harris-Biden administration, however you want to phrase it. And it needs to be noted. Now, I want to get some reaction to this, and of course the recent speech by Netanyahu. He gave an amazing speech, a joint session of Congress this past week, and I want to do that with Paul Teller. He is the executive director of AAF, Advancing American Freedom. Paul, welcome.
Hey, appreciate you having me, sir. Thank you.
You bet. So what's your initial take on what's going on here? It seems to me that things continue to be further destabilized in that region of the world. And I'm going to say, other than Iran's shoulders, the rest of this blame falls squarely on the Biden-Harris administration.
No question. I mean, first of all, let's remember, Iran is not getting this money from, the local ATM, right? This is coming from either directly from the United States, started under Obama, of course, paused during our days of the Trump-Pence years, and then restarted under Biden-Harris, or just by, easing up on sanctions so that money could flow from other countries, for example, Iraq, Russia, China, other places. So, yeah. So, in effect, we've funded this. I mean, it's hard to say, but it's true.
And this is a disgrace, obviously, but it's a testament to the epic failure that Biden is on the world stage, that Harris is, I would say she's even worse than he is. And yet here we are with him stepping aside, with her stepping up, with the media fawning over her, trying to create an artificial bubble, if you will, with polls and whatnot. And I feel like it's just all AstroTurf, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? They'll say a few sort of nice things, right? It's okay if you read it on paper. Put it in the context, though, of what they've done throughout their entire administration, and frankly, even most horribly, since October 7th, right? I mean, they have shown moral equivalence with the Palestinians, with Hamas, with Hezbollah, Iranians, Houthis, the whole thing, and just are constantly showing more sympathy for the other side, right? I mean, billions and billions of dollars easily flowing to the Palestinian side for supposedly humanitarian relief. We all know it goes right to the hands of terrorists. But with on the Israel side, they were slow walking weapons or not giving the most modern weapons and questioning Israel and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I agree with that. And folks, I just want to remind everybody we're on with Paul Teller, Advancing American Freedom. He's the executive director there, and you've got an op-ed that you put out in the Washington Examiner about the Netanyahu address to Congress, and I want to get into it. But first, I want to play a clip from that, and we're going to do that when we return. Folks, we're coming right back with Paul Teller from AAF. And again, your phone calls are coming up at the top of the hour, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
There's more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Ladies and gentlemen, like December 7th, 1941,
and September 11th, 2001. October 7th is a day that will forever live in infamy. It was the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah. It began as a perfect day, not a cloud in the sky. Thousands of young Israelis were celebrating at an outdoor music festival. And suddenly, at 6:29 a.m., as children were still sleeping soundly in their beds in the towns and kibbutzim next to Gaza, suddenly heaven turned into hell. 3,000 Hamas terrorists stormed into Israel. They butchered 1,200 people from 41 countries, including 39 Americans. Proportionately, compared to our population size, that's like 20 9/11s in one day. And these monsters, they raped women, they beheaded men, they burnt babies alive, they killed parents in front of their children and children in front of their parents. They dragged 255 people, both living and dead, into the dark dungeons of Gaza. Israel has already brought home 135 of these hostages, including 7 who were freed in daring rescue operations.
That, of course, is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his joint session of Congress. He addressed folks in both houses, I think it was Wednesday. And I want to continue our discussion on this. We've got the Executive Director of Advancing American Freedom, Paul Teller, with us. Paul, give us some of your thoughts. I know you wrote an entire op-ed in the Washington Examiner on this, but I want to get your take on the speech, its effectiveness, and everything else you want to add.
No, absolutely. Well, first, also just wanted to praise U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson for heeding our call to invite the Prime Minister in the first place. I mean, we led a coalition letter, got about 30 conservative partners together to say, you know what, like, we really should invite Netanyahu to speak to a joint session of Congress, if for no other reason than to kind of bypass the American media that was, not quite covering the truth of the war. Of course, the administration, not exactly a best partner with Netanyahu. So we said, you know what, just invite the Prime Minister to speak over the heads of all those folks, right to the American people, to the world. So kudos to Speaker Johnson for doing that. Really, really appreciate that. Just incredible address. So clear, right? So morally clear. There was just no kind of hesitation in his voice, in his facts, laying it out. He was, perfectly fine insulting, what did he say, the useful idiots who were on the side of Iran. I mean, that was beautiful, right? I mean, it's hard to think of many American politicians who would be that clear, that direct. So, just a home run, and, just love to keep talking about it. It's a speech that's going to live on for a while. We should all kind of rewatch it, reread it, that kind of thing.
There was a lot of reaction to this, and a lot of people that took exception to it, that thought it was not appropriate. Many did. I mean, I was kind of, I'm not going to say shocked, but I was surprised by the positive reaction that I heard from Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, and others. But yet there was still, the media still had a very mixed response, because they seem to be in the tank for Hamas. They seem to be very anti-Israel. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think, frankly, some of it just comes down to this kind of oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, right, that many on the left have, right? You're either the oppressor or the oppressed. There's nothing in between. And, of course, since Israel is a, wealthier democratic country, most, a lot of white people in the government, it therefore has to be the oppressor. Therefore, just by that definition, the Palestinian side is the oppressed side. Of course, that completely betrays the facts, but that's where I think a lot of this is coming from, and they're just parroting that in many media outlets. Just terrible.
Now, in terms of effectiveness, I tend to think Netanyahu always delivers a pretty solid speech, a speech that really gets people. I don't want to say just inspired, but He always leaves me with the sense that he's a very authentic guy. Whether you like him or you don't like him, I think very few people go, oh, he doesn't mean that. He's bluffing. I think he's always very serious, right. and they believe him, every side of every aisle. Do you think that was the way this message was received?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Like I said, he just spoke with a moral clarity that is unfortunately not super common, from American politicians, all over, left, right, center, that kind of thing. So I think that was very strong and refreshing. And yeah, I think he just, even the clip you just played, I mean, just laying out some facts that maybe some folks had forgotten of just how horrible of an event October 7th was, that it wasn't just kind of an incursion or, a scuffle with soldiers, that kind of thing. I mean, we're talking, raping of women, beheading of babies, killing kids in front of their parents, et cetera, just some of the worst things you could even imagine or really don't want to imagine, right? Many of us try not to think about it. So, yeah, it was good to get that back out in the public mind.
I hear that. Folks, we continue our discussion with Paul Teller, the Executive Director of Advancing American Freedom. Straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Do you believe Congress was used as a prop by Netanyahu?
I do think. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu accomplished his goal of using Congress as a prop to boost his support in Israel, especially among his right-wing extremists. If you saw the people who gave 2 thumbs up to his speech, they were Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. These are very right-wing extremists.
Was it a mistake for Democrats to support him coming to Congress?
I believe it was. I've expressed that view, but the reality is, obviously, he came. So for those of us who thought it was a mistake to have him here, we expressed our views by not participating.
So there we have it, the media weighing in. I want to get your reaction on this one because I think this is a very loaded statement, Paul Teller, that he used Congress as a prop. Your reaction?
Oh, I mean, just it was breaking my heart just listening to that. I mean, we're talking about the leader of arguably our best ally in the world, if not, maybe one of the best, if someone wants to soften it slightly, but certainly one of the best. During wartime, they're under existential threat, right? Attacks from Gaza, attacks in Judea and Samaria, attacks now from Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, I mean, like Syria, it's almost easier to count the countries that they're not being attacked from. And yet it's a prop to come to, the legislature of your best ally in the world, a nation who is giving resources, of course, weaponry, intel, that kind of thing. I just don't see at all the argument for it being a prop. It's just a fantastic diplomatic move, and I think one that's going to continue to bear fruit, in the coming weeks and months.
You know what I think is interesting here, Paul Teller, is that, in effect, everything that happens in politics, in one way or another, is for the expediency of one's agenda. And by way of it being a prop, everything is a prop, right? The fact that Biden gave a speech today trying to destroy the Supreme Court, this is a prop if they're going to use that line of thinking. The fact that anybody gives a speech about anything is, in effect, a prop if that's the angle they're going to take. Because you have to give the benefit of the doubt that what people are saying is something they believe is good and true and is going to be of benefit to those that are involved. And to just cheapen everything by saying it's a prop, I think is irresponsible, and I think it's also myopic in so much that you just can't do that, right? You can't just cheapen everything and make everything so gimmicky because it's politics, and there's a degree of gimmicky to everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Right. Is anything 100% purely pure, right? That has no, it doesn't have any sort of, public relations or marketing value to it? No, of course, right? I mean, any rally, any side of the aisle, right, has certain people standing behind it, and they make sure that the type of people standing behind or convey the image that they want to convey. Maybe it's people wearing hard hats, maybe it's, women doctors, whatever it is, Is that a prop? I mean, sure, I guess in one sense, but on the other hand, if it's a sincere effort and the folks behind you are actually supporting it, then that's really not a prop. So, I mean, it's, let's face it, the folks who said that are just using it to, it's another slap at Israel. It's another slap at those who support Israel. And, again, it goes back to that oppressor-oppressed kind of dichotomy where how dare you do anything that possibly, helps or gives a good audience to the oppressor, from the left's perspective. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's really the point, right? The point is, when he's talking about babies being burned alive, when he's talking about parents being killed in front of their children and children in front of their parents, to say that this speech is a prop to me is really where they cross the line, because it's so important, right? You're talking about these things that are so important. And like I said, by any degree, there's rhetoric in every political speech. But I think he touches on things here that are so important. And whether or not it's to advance the agenda of his country, yes, that's what diplomacy is. That's what politics is. That's what influencing the powers that be are. I think they're just cheapening the fact that he has this rhetorical presence and this relationship with a major ally in the United States. And I think they're jealous, if nothing else.
Yeah, actually, I think that's an excellent point. There's definitely an element of jealousy there. And also, it just was a smart move by Netanyahu. Again, great move by Speaker Johnson to invite him, and great move by Prime Minister Netanyahu to say yes, just to say, you know what, this is a great opportunity, not just to speak to the American people, but obviously it was internationally broadcast. It was just a chance for him to just have an audience of, probably 1 billion or more, for that hour. And it's just brilliant move. And like you said, I just think a lot of people are jealous that they didn't have that on their side. So just kudos to all who are involved.
Amen to that. Now, Paul Teller, let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with you and the work that you're doing at Advancing American Freedom.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, just actually put all of those words together into a website, and you've got it. So it's advancingamericanfreedom.com, advancingamericanfreedom.com. Lots of stuff on there on Israel, but honestly, dozens and dozens of other issues. We're trying to tackle it all.
And one more time, the website?
Absolutely. advancingamericanfreedom.com.
There you go. Folks, that's Paul Teller, Executive Director of Advancing American Freedom. Check him out at advancingamericanfreedom.com. Paul Teller, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Godspeed.
You too. Thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Now, folks, we're going to continue our conversation straight ahead with you, the American people, with Open Phone America, time-honored tradition here on this program, started by Larry King, who did it 46 years ago. Continued by the late, great Jim Bohannon, and, of course, continued by you and me this evening. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're live, we're national, and we're taking your calls on all of the hottest news stories of the day. Don't move a muscle. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this evening. It is Monday. It's hour number 3 of our program. If you want to join us, we call this Open Phones Across America. That's right. It's open lines for you guys. You can give us a call on any topic that you'd like to discuss. We're live. We're national. And the phone number is 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we've been talking about lots of news that's been going on, getting analysis and commentary with both our callers and different guests of the program. And, of course, my thoughts. And I want to hear your thoughts on Open Phone America. And, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a tradition that started on this program 46 years ago when Larry King was the host of this program. And he continued that in his tenure as host and passed it on to his main newsman and substitute host, Jim Bohannon, who locked it down and held it down for 3 decades and kept the tradition alive and well. And the torch has been passed to me, and it's been my honor to do that. I left the Mark Levin Show as associate producer there, Mr. Call Screener, to come and host this program. And I also hosted a program in New York locally, but came on the national scene, and I couldn't be happier to be here with you all. What an honor it is to be able to make radio magic, talk radio, late night talk radio magic, the old school way with you all. Again, the phone number 833-482-5337 is the phone number. And part of what we're talking about tonight is how the Democrats are weakening our constitutional republic through their attack on the Supreme Court, trying to implement term limits that would, in effect, spit in the face of what the founders intended for the Supreme Court, for the independence that they would have. He also, Biden today in his speech, also attacked the notion of presidents having any type of immunity while they're conducting their jobs, saying that if they commit crimes, we should come after them. I got hairy legs, Joel Baboso Biden. And, our guest pointed out he's trying to seek relevance. I think he's actually just a step beyond that, and he's trying to do something radical. He's trying to usurp the authority that is invested in you and me, we the people. And this, to me, is the biggest affront on democracy, right? The democracy, small d, that we have within our constitutional republic. And it's the same affront that we saw in the people of Venezuela as they were attempting to elect a new president and showed up en masse with a margin of 70% for the challenger and 30% for the incumbent, Nicolás Maduro. Yet he said, no, stop the presses. This is not going to happen. I'm going to win. And Nicolás Maduro put an end to the voting, declaring himself the winner. And it's a shame, but it's true. The old quote from Stalin that it's not important what you vote about or even who's voting, but more so who's counting the votes. That's what determines the outcomes. And it's sad, but it's true. And we see the same type of thing in every authoritarian communist sympathizer because they don't believe in liberty. They don't believe in the people. They believe in themselves. They believe in amassing power, and they believe in controlling the outcomes. And that's what we face in the Democrat Party in America, and that's what we face in autocracies all around the world. So I want to get a quick report in here from Newsmax on the outcome of the Venezuelan election. Check this out.
Well, Venezuela's opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez and President Nicolas Maduro's administration were caught in a high-stakes standoff after both claiming victory in Sunday's presidential election. Now, several foreign nations, notably the United States, refusing to recognize those results as election officials delayed revealing full vote counts.
That is Alex Kramer with Newsmax. She is a remarkable talent, by the way, a very, very sweet person and really good at what she does. And that's it. Nicolás Maduro, he says he's in. The folks that count the votes, which are known as the National Electoral Council, declared Maduro's victory, handing him a third six-year term. The Ministries of Defense, the Ministry of Communications, the Ministry of Technology, and the head of the National Assembly were among those in attendance who applauded. Maduro said this, quote, "I slept like a newborn baby because it was a historic event And this was, again, according to his comments on a nationally televised ceremony because they control the media. So this was the election to decide who is going to take control of an economy that's recovering from collapse and a population that's incredibly desperate for change. I was in Medellin, Colombia in, let's see, maybe it was January. Yeah, January. And I met a lot of Venezuelans who are crossing the border from Venezuela into Colombia because they're trying to make a better way. Things are really, really rough in Venezuela, and they're trying. And look, I took some heat online for saying that the events in Venezuela seem eerily similar to the Arab Spring, to the Maidan Square protests, to the toppling of the Saddam Hussein statue in Iraq, all of which I would think had some influence from the CIA so that we could put in a puppet regime that was amenable to the United States, to the deep state, if you will. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong in that assessment, but it seems similar. I'm not trying to discount the plight of the Venezuelan people. I love what they're doing. I love anyone who's fighting for freedom, just like the people in Taiwan have and do. But it always comes as, when it looks so eerily similar to these staged coups. It's almost as if they finally allow them to have their uprising. They finally allow them to do that because it takes a force stronger than the autocracy of Nicolás Maduro, like the CIA, the deep state, the United States, and the power that we bring to the table in order for so many of these things to actually occur. My hope is that it is organic. My hope that it is the real deal. My hope is that they're seeing what's happening in America, and that's why they're chanting USA, and that they're desperate and thirsty for the liberty that they know can exist here based on our Constitution, and so they can have their own constitutional republic. One can only hope. But I want to get your thoughts on that stuff and more. We've got lots to discuss tonight. Let's go to the phones, 833-482-5337. Right now we've got calls from Montana, from Maryland, from Idaho, and Pennsylvania. Let's go to Pittsburgh and check in with Jim. Jim from KDKA. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, Rich. Great show.
Thank you.
That election, I don't have any doubt it was CIA involved, and here's why. I had a professor when I was at Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, in 1974. His name was Richard Cottom. He's a leading expert in Iran. Later, we found out he was a CIA operative. And he starts the class, the first thing he says was, well, we had a coup in the Shah in 53, Venezuela, Chile, Allende. Now, think about it. I was looking up some information on Maduro. He took over for Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez started that revolution. And then Maduro was indicted for drug trafficking. Oh, yes, he was. And what they did, they nationalized the oil there, which was Citgo. And so basically they were eating out of garbage cans. Okay? Now, it's the same thing.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's the same thing we have here in a way. They tried to put Trump in jail for all these phony charges. And, it's a banana republic because, this is an NPR story I'm reading. And certain countries aren't even accepting them. Brazil, some other countries, they're basically saying it was not legitimate. But he has his hand-picked puppet, electoral college guy come out and says, oh, no, it was fair. Now, that's the same thing that they're trying to do. The Democrats, they want to reform the Supreme Court. This is a joke. They're talking about save democracy. Okay, sure. They want to have terms on them. They want to have an ethics panel. They've corrupted everything else through the legislature, who's rubber stamp. Now they want to control the Supreme Court. That should be scary to America.
It really is. It is scary. I think people should be concerned. They should be alarmed that there's a political party that embraces this kind of I'm going to say extremism, right? This is something Biden has claimed is extreme. He spent a lot of today talking about extremism and extreme this and extreme that, calling for all sorts of constitutional amendments. But the reality is the extremism, in my opinion, comes from the Democrat Party, comes from how they want to ridiculously usurp the power from the people, to grant themselves this power to kind of through self-dealing, just keep dealing themselves in. They're like the house in the casino, right? They never want to lose, and they want to rig the system so that they don't lose. And it's a shame, and it's up to you and me and everybody that's listening and those that we have influence over and with and can work through to make sure that we protect this republic, that we make sure that we give our children and our children's children a better America than the one that we got. And that's just that. Thank you, brother, for your call. Big shout out to KDKA, America's oldest radio station. Again, a big welcome to WLS, the Windy City. Our friends in Chicago are joining us tonight for the first night. I appreciate you guys. Folks, we're coming right back with your calls and more. 833-482-5337. We're live and we're national. It's Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
And by then?
It was too late.
It was too late. Again, now this is new information that's coming out. That was Jason Woods. He's a Pennsylvania SWAT team officer on duty during Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. He was on ABC this week saying that we never met with the Secret Service for a briefing. And this is a big deal, because it's like one failure after another, and this massive failure is being revealed. There's video that's been released where you see people on the ground pointing at the roof 45 minutes before Trump goes on stage. You see local cops grabbing their guns, looking at the roof as if they know there's a potential threat on the roof, not informing the Secret Service, or informing the Secret Service that didn't have the shared channel working, or weren't using the same walkie-talkies, or whatever the case was. Clearly just a massive communications failure. People saying it was too hot for them to be on the highest point of the roof where they needed to be, the anti-sniper team. Just a lot. I mean, just a lot of things that were wrong. So Kim Cheadle resigning seems to be, I'm thinking, the administration's way of saying, hey, look, she made a mistake. She's gone. Next. What else you got? Let's talk about killing the Supreme Court. I don't know if that's going to cut it. We've got to keep our foot on the gas here, because this is another example of how a deep state silliness, right? The administrative state, the bloated bureaucry even, it is just running amok. They're doing what they want, whether it's malicious or not. They do what they want. Things fall through the cracks. It allows for those who want to game the system, work the system, abuse the system. They can do it because they know where the inefficiencies are, where the weaknesses are. This is not good. Not good for America, not good for you and me, not good for anybody. And again, that was Jason Woods on the clip that you just heard. I want to get your thoughts on this. You know where I stand. Let me see. Let's go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Rich. Say, going back to the shooting, it shows, there's a hole, and by gosh, he's got post-traumatic stress disorder. Any type of injury to the ear like that, it's traumatic, and it's stressful. And there could have been you could have a CAT scan, but 2 weeks later, that CAT scan could be different. The brain works differently. It's a delayed kind of injury. And for that reason, it's it's similar to a war wound. A lot of soldiers who get these kind of miracle shots and they feel like God's on their side. We're going to go back and get the enemy. But gosh, they should get a surgery done to prevent a cauliflower ear, and so that grows, it heals correctly. You should just have some R&R and relax and you feel more confident later. But it's something that would be worth his time doing this. I just don't want him to see him wear out. I think God is on his side, but I don't think that he should be ending a speech like last Friday saying, well, Christians don't have to, shouldn't have to vote 4 years from now. That's like saying we don't need a wall. Let's build a stairway to heaven, and good gosh. I know we're going to have a good future, and I think Don, he's got everybody on his side, the good people.
Yeah, I agree with you in so much as I think God is on his side. I think you're right. The future is bright with a Trump presidency, and all things are go there. And I also agree with you that there's likely some PTSD at play here. I don't know if I interpreted the speech the same way you did, but I definitely will say that I can only imagine and expect that somebody getting shot, in that manner, right? It's not like, if you or me were walking to the store and get, crossfire or ricochet from some sort of gang activity shooting. That's bad enough. But this one, they were trying to kill him specifically. That's got to be horrible. It's got to get inside your head. But I think the fact that, like the Bible says, for such a time as this, I feel like Trump and his massive ego and his bravado and everything that he brings to the table is helping him in a big way, because that's getting him through. You need somebody with that thick skin. You need somebody with that level of toughness, I'm going to say, so that you can navigate a situation like this, because I think many other people would fold under the pressure. So really, really good point. Let me see. There's another call here I wanted to get to. But I don't want to cut you too short with a minute to go, unless we can get it done quickly. Let me see. Man, I can't see it. Philip, Reading, Pennsylvania. Go right ahead. We're down to less than a minute.
Hi. Thanks for calling. First time call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. You lost all your time saying hello, Philip. Hang on. I'll try and get back to you. I'm sorry about that. I thought it was going to be a quick punch. You were going to make your point quickly. All right. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're coming right back. The Olympics were out of hand, as you know, on Friday, and now they've made a statement. We're going to bring you that on our way back. Don't go anywhere. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez. Don't move a muscle.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, live, national, and taking your calls, 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. This section of the program, this third and final hour of the show, is called Open Phone America. That's where you guys get to call in and sound off and let us know what you think. And former President Trump did an interview with Fox a little while ago, and he says that it was a disgrace the way they made a mockery of the Last Supper, and it was a slap in the face to Christians around the globe. And I agree with that, and I think many people do. Again, Trump doubling down that it was a disgrace, in line with what many people feel. I mean, this was by and large the reaction that Christians all around the globe, I think, felt and kind of took to these vigils and rallies and public demonstrations of their disdain for the way the faith was mocked. at the Olympics opening ceremony. And what's interesting is that the Olympics actually issued a statement on this. I want you to listen to this statement from Anne DeCamp. She is the spokesperson for the Paris Olympics. Check this out.
And clearly there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, I think that Thomas Joly really tried to really intend to celebrate community tolerance. That was his word yesterday. And looking at the result of the polls that we shared, we believe that this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry.
So obviously, she is what in Puerto Rico they would call an embustera, right? She's lying. And again, maybe she's not lying. Maybe she really believes that it's okay to create your own Last Supper where you replace Jesus with a fat drag queen and all sorts of other transsexual, homosexual, and whomever. Again, their sexuality, I think, plays a minor role here. What the major role is just the outright mocking of the faith. Just like when Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence did it at Dodger Stadium, and they put a Jesus-looking person with a loincloth on a cross, and then it became a pole dance. And they wore these, exaggerated habits as if they were nuns. And again, all designed to mock the faith. They say it's not to mock the faith, that it's parody, it's satire to draw attention to the fact that Christians don't accept their lifestyle. You know me, I'm always supporting free speech, and I do. And I also support my right to defend my faith and yours. And I think that's oftentimes what's on the table. You want to say what you want to say. You talk your smack, I'll talk my smack, right? May the best man win. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. I like to think we can all respect one another, and we can draw differences and contrast between the things that we disagree on or even agree on, and do it in a civil and respectful way. But I realize sometimes things are going to get out of hand. There's an old saying, you're going to crack a few eggs when you're making an omelet. And I realize that that's the case. So some people are going to get pissed off by what is said by one side versus the other. And things are not always going to be extraordinarily collegial or peaceful. I get that too. My hope is that they're not. I hope that, we err on the side of peace and harmony and not on the side of evil and wrongdoing. But again, those things happen. Look at October 7th. Look at July 13th when they took a shot at El Trompito. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts. I want to go back to Philip calling us from Reading, Pennsylvania, WEEU. That goes all the way into South Jersey as well. Philip, go right ahead. Thanks for your call.
Yeah, thank you again. 3 points. I'll make it fast. One, I might have missed this, but was there ever talk about the people sitting directly behind Mr. Trump? Any of them got hit with debris when he got hit in the ear. And also, going to the hearing from last Monday, the former director just did not answer a lot of the questions that was asked her. And she was just giving them hot air throughout the whole hearing. And also, the Secret Service, do they not have briefing or debriefing before the event?
Right. Well, Philip, we just heard from a Pennsylvania state SWAT guy that was there that's on the record to defend their own record, saying that they did not have any briefing, that, normally you should. And it's protocol for, at least Biden's security team is having these briefings, whether or not other people like Trump, Clinton, or other ex-presidents or other protectees that are not the current president. It seems that they've been cutting corners. It seems like they've not done a lot of things the way they're supposed to do them, and they're coming to light. And I guess that there's a silver lining to this tragedy, or would-be tragedy, in that we hopefully can prevent any future instances of would-be or potential tragedies by identifying these gaps in operations and service where we can improve upon that. if that's in fact the case. The other side of that coin is these gaps were intentional. These people were trying to murder Trump and everybody was in on it, or a good fair amount of them were. I don't want to believe that, but that's a possibility I'm forced to have to accept at some point, because there was a guy on a roof shooting at Trump and he definitely wanted to murder Trump. And the fact that you have all these dedicated men and women of so many different law enforcement agencies that were there with one mission, one job, keep Trump alive, keep him safe. The fact that this can happen is difficult, I think, for a layman like me to believe that, wow, you guys all allowed that to go down? Like not one person among you was a cowboy that said, for 3 hours, 2 hours, 46 minutes, whatever the number was, said, we got to take action here. I don't know. I don't want to indict a bunch of people that I think are trying to do the right thing and might be understaffed or under-resourced. I don't know. What I do know is we can't have this situation again. That part I know. The other thing that you mentioned was the what was the other point? You made 3 points. Your first point was on the lousy investigation. The other one was what?
The hearing from last Monday.
Yes, Director Wray. Yeah, we spent a little time talking about that, and I think Director Wray is a fake, phony fraud, and he ended up having to, not he himself, but he had the FBI issue not an apology but a correction, saying that no, it was in fact the bullet that hit Trump's ear, and that what he had said publicly in the hearing, that there was some question on whether it was shrapnel or a bullet. Was misconstrued, and that it wasn't, fragments of a bullet or a bullet, but it was, the bullet itself or whatever it was. He made it seem as if it was glass that was hitting the president, or at least it seemed to be echoing the sentiment in some media reports that was the case. So, yeah, I think you're right on both of those, that we've got a problem here, Houston. We've definitely got a problem. And it needs to be addressed. And I think we address that by electing Trump as president in November. Between now and then, there's a lot of work to do, and Republicans on the campaign, off the campaign, on the radio, in retirement, in the trenches, wherever they are, independents, whomever, all Americans need to play this game as if they are behind. No one should take any election for granted, because there's a lot of things that can happen. There's a lot of time yet to go. Not quite enough time, in my opinion, to really run an effective presidential campaign, but definitely enough time for October surprises and other shenanigans. We've already seen how far they can go. I think right now we just have to stay focused on executing the plan. And the plan is getting across the finish line, winning, and electing Trump as president. Philip in Reading, Pennsylvania, WEEU. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate the call. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the family. Folks, we get to the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, America. We continue our late-night national town hall conversation. The number again, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to rewind the tape to 2018, to when Kamala Harris was, as I like to call her, Kamala Harris, was on with Ellen DeGeneres on her television show. She had a talk show back then. And she asked her a very pointed question that did not age very well. Listen to this.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
And there's the cackle. Cackling Kamala Harris and her famous cackle. Of course, the jokes surround somebody not coming out alive. Then Kathy Griffin famously does the cover of the magazine holding the bloody, beheaded Trump head. I mean, the irony, or I should say the vitriol, is just ironic because Trump's never suggested those things, right? He's never, ever, ever suggested anything like that. Yet he's the one that's the biggest threat to everything. Anyway, Kamala Harris, or who I like to call Kamala Harris, which means how bad you are, how bad she is. I've been calling her that, I don't know, since she's been on the presidential campaign. I don't know, probably since 2019. And, we came up with a song for it on this program. And somebody's remixed the song that we came up with. But for anybody who's new to the program, I'm going to play a little bit of the song that we came up with. It was a little bit of a parody for Kamala Harris. Listen to this. Kamala, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala. That's the Kamala Harris song. Kamala Harris, how bad she is. Kamala, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala. Now, I had a lot of fun doing that. I did that on the fly with our producer and getting a little reverb going and playing the track. And, it was fun. It was fun to do. And I play it every now and again as a little bit of a parody. But someone has taken it to a whole new level. I was scrolling through Twitter, at Rich Valdez, by the way, on Twitter, if you want to give a follow, or on Instagram or any of these social media, Truth Social included. And Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna had this on her feed, and it was hysterical. Listen to this.
Kamala, Kamala eres, Kamala eres, Kamala. Kamala, Kamala eres, Kamala eres, Kamala. La militante pionera, izquierdosa de raíz.
So now this is a full-on salsa song where they're saying literally how bad you are, Kamala, how bad she is. And they talk about how bad she is on the border and how bad she is on so many different things. I did tweet that out a couple of days ago. If you want to take a look at that, you can, especially if you speak Spanish. That's even better. But really, really humorous. And it's great to see that there's so many Hispanics out there that are going to be voting in this election that see her for what she is. Kamala Harris. So that's always refreshing. Now, I want to get to some of your calls. I know you guys want to weigh in on Kamala Harris. Let's go with a minute and a half to go in this segment. Let's go to Pat, Sedona, Arizona, listening online to richvaldez.com. Pat, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, I got 2 points for you. First one is you will not believe the report when it finally comes out about the assassination attempt on Trump because the FBI is doing it. You know what's so sad? They used to have the props of the world in this country, and they've done such a bad job. Nobody will believe them that they do it. And I'm worried about things will disappear. Like during Kennedy's and Martin Luther King's assassinations, things disappeared. Okay, Kamala, I'll tell you what about her is that, she, well, let me see how I should say this, but she is boasting that Trump is running from her, that he will not debate her. And you know why? And Trump came back and told her in his 75-minute speech he had today, man, that guy's got strength, is that she is not the official nominee of the Democratic Party. I don't even think the Democratic Party has a nominee since Biden stepped down. And the thing that worries me about that $230 million, it shouldn't go to her. It should go back to the people that gave it because they wanted Joe Biden in there, not her at the time. So,
well, I think the reason it's there is because he's stepping off the ticket, but she's on the ticket because it's the Biden-Harris ticket. So I think that part is debatable. But I'm with you on that one. And I'm with Trump, too. I think it's the right thing to do to say, hey, look, I will debate whoever the nominee is. Come up with a nominee. I am the Republican nominee. So once you come up with a Democrat nominee, I'm in. She's the de facto nominee. Obama's endorsed her. Super. Let's just wait for the convention to happen. We'll do the debate right after that. I think that's the way to go. Pat, I got to pause here, and we're going to come back with the rest of everybody's calls in the speed round, plus some of my final thoughts. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez here with you live till 1 a.m. Eastern time. And I want to play a quick clip for you. We've got a clip of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson back in 2016 when Trump was running, when he was likely working on getting back his voting ability from his felony conviction and whatnot. Mike Tyson did a radio interview, and I love it. He was just so classic, so honest, on a show called Ebro in the Morning on Hot 97 in New York City, a show I used to listen to until it became overtly political. And the reason I used to listen is I'm a huge fan of hip-hop music. I love hip-hop music. I also like a genre called reggaeton. It's like Spanish, Puerto Rican reggae. Really, really good stuff. Anyway, point is, they stopped playing music on this station. Not so much stopped, but really got into political commentary. And that's not what anybody was tuning in for, right? On this show, that's what you're getting. On that show, I thought I was going to listen to the latest, hip-hop tracks. Anyway, Mike Tyson is a guest on the show, and they're giving him a hard time because he says he's going to vote for Trump. And listen to his response.
But anyway, if I'm voting for Trump, so what somebody's going to do about it?
I don't think anybody, I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just talking about, so what?
Yeah, does it make you feel weird that people...
so what?
Why is it people care about your opinion so much? Is that weird to you that people freak out about your opinion?
No, they believe I have a lot of followers, this and that, but this is my opinion. This is what I believe. Am I going to say, yeah, man, let's go for cops killing? No.
Right.
Okay? But if I like Donald Trump and I want to vote for him, I'm going to do it. So what? What are you going to do? Shoot me, beat me up?
No,
I don't think so.
No, it's not.
What are you going to do? Shoot me, beat me up? I don't think so. I love it. Mike Tyson. Kudos to Mike Tyson. Because you know what? He kept it real. He kept the gangsta right there. And that's what I love. And everybody that's listening, I want to thank you all because it's always a good time when I chat with you all, the American people. Let's go to Boise, Idaho. Check in with our buddy Paul. Paul, go right ahead. KBFI. Yes, sir. Quickly.
Show. Yeah,
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about the Olympics opening. It was disgraceful, reprehensible, and I don't know what else to say other than it was Sodom and
I agree with you.
Gomorrah.
It was disgraceful and reprehensible and something hopefully that will never be repeated, and I'm glad they apologized for it, even if it was like a pseudo-apology, Paul. Paul, KBFI, thank you. Shout out to Boise, Idaho. All right, America. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing.